"Sign the house to your sister," my father said. He pushed a blue folder across his dining room table. It bumped against my water glass and stopped beside my plate. Chelsea sat across from me with her hands folded. Her husband, Bradley, kept cutting his chicken even though he hadn't taken a bite in several minutes. "My name is Sarah Jimenez. I'm 33 years old. If you've ever been expected to surrender something just to keep your family comfortable, I understand. Please like this video and subscribe." Dad tapped the folder with one finger. "It's time to stop fighting this." "I didn't know we were fighting," I said. Chelsea let out a quiet breath through her nose. It was meant to sound patient. She'd been doing that since we were little. She could make silence feel like testimony. Dad looked at her, then back at me. "You know exactly what I mean. Actually, I didn't. The house he wanted me to hand over was a craftsman bungalow at 214 Cork Street in Winchester. It had belonged to my grandmother, Diane Jimenez. When she died in 2024, she left it to me outright. Not to Dad, not to Chelsea, to me. At the time of that dinner, I still believed the recorded title showed exactly that. I had no idea that 5 months earlier, somebody had filed a different deed carrying my name. I didn't know about the loan either. All I knew was that my father had placed a document in front of me and expected my signature before dessert. That part was familiar. Chelsea was 3 years older than me. By the time I was old enough to notice how our family worked, everybody already had assigned roles. Chelsea was impressive. I was dependable. That sounds harmless until you grow up inside it. When Chelsea forgot Dad's birthday, she was busy. When I remembered it, that was just me being organized. When Chelsea borrowed money and paid back half, Dad admired her ambition. When I refused to lend her more, I was keeping score. If Chelsea needed help moving, the whole family received a group message. If I needed help, Dad asked whether I'd called someone who did that professionally. Our mother used to soften the difference. She couldn't always stop it, but she could make Dad hear himself. After she was gone, there was nobody between his preference and the rest of us. Grandma Diane saw it, though. She didn't give speeches about fairness. She'd just look at me after Chelsea left another holiday early and say, "Help me put this ham away before your father wraps it like a football." Then we'd stand in her kitchen dividing leftovers into old margarine containers. She saved every container that had a usable lid. None of the lids matched on the first try. Her house sat 3 blocks from Old Town. It had green siding, white trim, and a porch wide enough for 2 rocking chairs. The front steps leaned slightly to the left. The kitchen floor dipped near the pantry. Grandma had lived there for more than 50 years. By the time she was 80, she needed help with small things. Nothing dramatic. She stopped driving after dark. Her knees made basement stairs difficult. She couldn't read the tiny numbers on prescription bottles without holding them beneath the stove light. I started going over every Wednesday after work. I was a title examiner at Blue Ridge Title and Abstract. Most days, I read deeds, judgments, easements, and old plats until the names blurred together. I also carried a Virginia Notary commission through my job. On Wednesdays, I left the office around 5 and picked up whatever Grandma needed. Usually that meant milk, bananas, and one bakery item she claimed she hadn't requested. I said bread, she'd tell me. "This is bread with frosting. That is cake." It was beside the bread. She'd shake her head and put on the kettle. Chelsea lived less than 15 minutes away. Then, she was a real estate agent, so she passed near Cork Street all the time. Her signs were in front yards from Winchester to Stevens City. She rarely stopped. When Grandma turned 82, Chelsea arrived at the birthday lunch 40 minutes late. She was wearing a cream suit and talking into a wireless headset. "I've got clients outside a property," she said, although nobody had asked. She set a gift bag on the table. Inside was a digital picture frame. "It connects to your internet," Chelsea told Grandma. "Sarah can set it up." Then she took 2 photographs, ate half a piece of cake, and left. Dad watched her walk out with an expression close to pride. "She's really building something," he said. Grandma looked at me. "So are you," she said. Dad didn't hear her. He was already carrying plates to the sink. I set up the frame that afternoon. Grandma unplugged it a week later because she thought the changing pictures meant it was still using electricity while nobody watched it. That was how our family operated. Chelsea supplied the impressive object. I stayed behind to make it work. I didn't resent helping Grandma. That's important. I loved those evenings. We watched game shows with the volume too high. I changed furnace filters and cleaned dead moths from the porch light. She told me which neighbors had stopped speaking and why. Sometimes I brought title files home when work was busy, and she sat at the kitchen table doing crossword puzzles while I searched 60-year-old deeds. She called my job detective work for houses. That's not completely wrong, I told her. People lie about money, she said. Houses remember. I laughed when she said that. I remembered it later. During Grandma's last year, Dad started coming by more often. He handled doctor appointments and insurance calls. Aunt Gail, his older sister, brought soup and took Grandma to get her hair done. Chelsea appeared when someone mentioned estate planning. One Sunday, I arrived and found her walking around the living room with her phone held up. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Just checking the light." "For what?" "Photos. Someday this place will need proper listing pictures." Grandma was sitting in her chair near the window. Her mouth tightened. "I'm not dead yet," she said. Chelsea lowered the phone. "Grandma, that's not what I meant. It's what you said." Chelsea looked at me as if I'd arranged the whole exchange. Later, while I was putting clean sheets on Grandma's bed, Chelsea stood in the doorway. "You always make me look bad in front of her." I tucked the last corner under the mattress. I didn't say anything. "You don't have to. You come over here and do your little routine." "What routine?" "Groceries, laundry, fixing things." "Saint Sarah." I turned around. "Do you want to change the sheets?" Chelsea stared at me. "That's not the point." "No, I guess it isn't." She left without saying goodbye to Grandma. Dad called that evening. "You could make more room for your sister." I was standing in my apartment kitchen, scraping dried oatmeal from a bowl. She was welcome to stay. "You know, Chelsea's schedule isn't like yours. We both work. She works with clients. She can't just clock out. Neither could I, but there wasn't much use saying that." Dad treated my steady hours as proof that my time had no value. "I didn't ask Grandma to criticize her," I said. "Still, you could have stepped in." "Stepped in and said what?" "That Chelsea has responsibilities." I looked at the bowl in my hand. So do I. Dad went quiet for a moment. "Why does everything have to be a competition with you?" That sentence followed me for years. I could stand completely still while Chelsea took something from my hands, and Dad would ask why I was making it a contest. Grandma died in the spring of 2024. She was 84. Her last decline was quick. 1 week she was complaining that the grocery store had rearranged the canned soup. The next she was in the hospital, too tired to hold a full conversation. I sat beside her on the second evening. The room smelled like disinfectant and weak coffee. Dad had gone home to shower. Aunt Gail was speaking with a nurse. Grandma opened her eyes and looked at me. "Did you lock the back door?" she asked. "Yes." "The lower lock too?" "Yes." She nodded. "There's chicken in the freezer." "I know. Don't let your father throw out my good containers." "I won't." She closed her eyes again. Her hand stayed around 2 of my fingers until she fell asleep. Chelsea came the next morning with an orchid from the hospital gift shop. She stayed about 20 minutes. She took a call in the hallway, then told Dad she had a closing. Grandma died that night. The will reading wasn't dramatic. It happened in a small conference room at the lawyer's office. There was a fake plant in one corner and a tray of bottled water nobody touched. Dad received her savings and personal accounts after expenses. Aunt Gail received jewelry, family photographs, and several pieces of furniture she'd always loved. Chelsea received a cash bequest. I received the Cork Street house. The will included a short statement in Grandma's own words. Her attorney read it aloud. "I leave my home at 214 Cork Street to my granddaughter, Sarah Jimenez, who cared for me without being asked, and who was the one who never made me feel like a chore." Nobody spoke after that. Chelsea picked at the edge of a paper napkin. Dad cleared his throat. "Well," he said, "your grandmother knew what she wanted. At first I thought that meant he accepted it. The deed of distribution was prepared and recorded properly. I checked it myself after it appeared in the Winchester City land records. The title was clean. There were no liens or loans against the property. Chelsea called me 2 days later. Are you going to sell? I don't know yet. You should let me list it. I'm not ready to talk about that. I'm family, Sarah. I'm not going to pressure you. She pressured me for the next 6 months. She sent estimated sale prices. She sent contractor contacts. She sent a document labeled potential net sheet showing what I might receive after commissions. Her commission was included. When I told her I planned to keep the house, she changed tactics. You already have a place to live, she said. I was renting a 1-bedroom apartment near the office. I'm allowed to own a house I don't occupy yet. It's sitting empty. I'm there every week, you know what I mean. I did know. Chelsea thought unused meant available to her. I kept the utilities on. I paid the taxes and insurance. I hired a local company to cut the grass. On Saturdays, I sorted Grandma's belongings one room at a time. I didn't rush. There were recipes tucked inside cookbooks and safety pins in every drawer. Grandma had kept appliance manuals for things she no longer owned. In a cabinet above the refrigerator, I found birthday candles, expired coupons, and a roll of film nobody had developed. Dad came by sometimes. He'd sit at the kitchen table while I packed dishes. "You don't need all this stuff," he said once. "I'm sorting it." "You've been sorting it for a year. It takes as long as it takes." He opened a cabinet, then closed it. Chelsea could make something out of this place. The words were casual. The meaning wasn't. What does that mean? She has vision. She knows the market. I know the property. That's not what I said. I folded another sheet of newspaper around a serving bowl. Grandma left it to me. I'm aware. Then why does Chelsea keep coming up? Dad leaned back in his chair. Because she has a family business to build. You've got your job. You're secure. So being secure means I should give her my house. I didn't say give. He waited, but I didn't fill the silence. Maybe there's an arrangement, he said. Something fair. Fair to whom? His face changed slightly. Not anger. Disappointment, which he used more effectively. You always assume the worst when Chelsea's involved. That was where we left it. For almost a year, nobody mentioned transferring the house again. I continued going over on Saturdays. I replaced a leaking faucet and paid to have part of the porch roof repaired. I met with a painter about the peeling rail, but I decided to wait until fall. Chelsea occasionally asked whether I'd changed my mind. I always said no. Then, in July of 2026, Dad invited me to Sunday dinner. He said he was making roast chicken. That was unusual enough that I asked who else was coming. Just family, he said. That answer should have warned me. Chelsea and Bradley were already there when I arrived. Bradley owned Woods Auto Sales on the north side of Winchester. He usually talked about inventory, interest rates, and how nobody understood how difficult it was to run a dealership. That evening, he barely spoke. Chelsea offered me wine before I'd put down my purse. No thanks. You sure? I'm driving. It's 1 glass. I'm fine with water. Her smile stayed in place a second too long. Dinner itself was almost normal. Dad asked about work. Chelsea talked about a couple relocating from Northern Virginia. Bradley complained about auction prices. Nobody mentioned Cork Street until Dad cleared our plates. Then Chelsea went to the sideboard and brought over the blue folder. She placed it in front of Dad, not me. Dad rested both palms on the table. "We need to settle something," he said. "What?" "The house." I looked at Chelsea. She lowered her eyes, performing reluctance. Dad opened the folder. Chelsea has put a lot of thought into what's best for the property. She and Bradley are prepared to renovate it. With whose permission? "Sarah," Chelsea said softly, "can we not start like that?" "Like what?" "Hostile." I hadn't raised my voice. I'd barely moved. Dad turned the folder toward me. The top page was titled, Confirmatory Deed. I read documents for a living. I didn't need long to understand its basic purpose. It said I was confirming and ratifying a transfer of the Cork Street property to Chelsea. The wording bothered me immediately. You don't confirm something that never happened. I lifted the first page and checked the next one. There was a legal description, a prepared byline, and a signature block with my name beneath it. "Why is this called a confirmatory deed?" I asked. Chelsea answered too quickly. "It's standard." "Standard for what?" "For clearing up the ownership. There's nothing unclear about the ownership. Dad rubbed his forehead. This is exactly what I meant. What did you mean? You always resist her. I looked down at the document again. What am I confirming? Chelsea reached for her wine. It's a technical term. It has a technical meaning. Bradley finally spoke. Can we keep this simple? I'm trying to. Dad slid the folder closer. Sign the house to your sister. He said it as if he were asking me to pass the salt. I looked at him. Why? Because Chelsea has earned the chance to do something with it. How did she earn my house? His jaw tightened. Don't twist my words. I'm asking what they mean. Chelsea put down her glass. Grandma's decision hurt me, Sarah. You know it did. She left you money. This isn't about the money. Bradley shifted in his chair. I glanced at him, then back at Chelsea. If it isn't about money, why do you need the deed? She didn't answer. Dad did. Your grandmother made that decision while you were constantly over there influencing her. The room went quiet. That was the first time he'd said it plainly. I thought about Grandma's groceries, her medicine bottles, the porch light full of moths, the sheets Chelsea wouldn't help me change. You think I manipulated her? I think she depended on you. That isn't the same thing. It affected her judgment. Chelsea reached across the table and touched Dad's wrist. Dad, it's okay. She said it like she was protecting him from me. I closed the folder. I'm not signing this tonight. Dad stared at me. Why not? Because I don't sign property documents without reviewing them. You review paperwork all day. Exactly. Chelsea leaned back. What are you implying? Nothing yet. That made Bradley look at me. Dad pushed his chair away from the table. You've always needed everything on your terms. I need to read a deed before signing it. It's your sister. It's still a deed. He walked to the kitchen counter and stood with his back to us. Chelsea gathered the pages into the folder. Her hands were steady, but a red patch had appeared along her neck. I really hoped we could do this without making it ugly, she said. I picked up my purse. Then send me a copy. She looked at Dad. He turned around. Take the folder, he said. But don't drag this out. Chelsea and Bradley have contractors waiting. That was new information. When are they planning to start? As soon as this is settled, Chelsea said. Have you been inside the house? She paused. Dad has a key. I looked at him. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Grandma's spare key had been in his desk for years. I'd never asked for it back because I didn't believe I needed to. I took the folder home. My apartment was quiet when I arrived. I put the document on my kitchen counter, changed out of my work clothes, and made coffee even though it was after 9. Then I read every page. The confirmatory language referred to a prior transfer, but it didn't identify that transfer clearly. It used phrases like correction of record and confirmation of intent. Whoever drafted it expected me to recognize what it was fixing. I didn't. I checked the legal description against my copy of Grandma's deed. It matched. I texted Chelsea. What earlier instrument is this supposed to confirm? 3 dots appeared. They disappeared. Then they came back. She replied, Dad explained everything. Let's talk tomorrow. I wrote, he didn't explain that. She didn't answer. I barely slept. The next morning, I arrived at Blue Ridge Title before 7:30. The office was still dark except for the emergency lights near the back door. I turned on my computer and set the blue folder beside the keyboard. There are habits you develop when you work with land records. You never trust the copy someone hands you. You pull the current index. You trace the names. You check what was actually recorded. I logged into the Winchester City record system and searched the Cork Street address. Grandma's deed appeared first. Below it was another entry. Quitclaim deed. Grantor, Sarah Jimenez. Grantee, Chelsea Woods. Recorded in February of 2026. For several seconds, I only looked at the screen. Then I opened the image. My name was signed at the bottom. A notary named Peter Higgins had stamped and sealed it. According to that document, I had already given my house to Chelsea 5 months before Dad told me to sign it over. I zoomed in until the signature filled the screen. It looked enough like mine to survive a quick glance. The first letter had the same wide loop I used. The last name slanted upward in the right direction, but the middle was wrong. My real signature tightened after the first few letters. Whoever signed this had tried to make every letter readable. It was the kind of mistake people make when copying a signature. They reproduce the shape instead of the movement. I checked the acknowledgement. The deed claimed I had personally appeared before Peter Higgins on a Thursday afternoon in February. It listed Winchester as the place of notarization. I opened my work calendar. That week was marked in green because I'd attended a title industry conference in Richmond. I remembered the trip clearly. The hotel room had faced a parking garage. The heating unit rattled all night. I'd spent Thursday afternoon in a session about deed fraud and electronic recording. I sat back in my chair. That detail would have been funny in a different life. I pulled up my email and searched the conference name. My registration confirmation appeared first. Under it was the hotel reservation, then the final receipt. Check-in was Tuesday. Check-out was Friday. Thursday afternoon, when the deed said I was appearing before a notary in Winchester, I'd used my conference badge to attend 2 training sessions in Richmond. I had a parking receipt from the hotel garage and a dinner charge from a restaurant beside the convention center. I printed everything. The printer sounded unusually loud in the empty office. I placed the conference records beside the deed image and took photographs with my phone. Then I saved the files to a folder that wasn't connected to our shared work system. I called it Cork Review. I didn't call it fraud. Not yet. There's a difference between knowing a signature isn't yours and proving what happened around it. I knew enough to stop speaking casually. I didn't know enough to accuse anyone. I also didn't know who Peter Higgins was. The notary section listed a commission number and an expiration date. The seal looked valid. The deed had passed the clerk's basic recording requirements. That didn't prove the notarization was legitimate. It only meant the document looked complete when somebody submitted it. I searched the state notary database. Peter's commission was active. His address was a small office suite off Valley Avenue. A business listing described him as a mobile loan signing agent. He handled refinance packages, purchase closings, and after-hours appointments. His photograph showed a man with short brown hair and rectangular glasses. I'd never seen him before. I printed that page too. By then, it was a little after 8. My manager, Lisa, arrived carrying a travel mug and a canvas bag full of files. She stopped near my desk. "You're early. Couldn't sleep. That sounds healthy." She set her bag down. I minimized the land record window. Lisa wasn't family. She also wasn't someone I wanted involved before I understood what I was looking at. Title companies live on trust. A forged deed connected to an employee could become office gossip before lunch, even if nobody meant harm. She nodded toward the blue folder. Personal closing? Family paperwork. Those are usually worse. She walked into her office and turned on the lights. I waited until her door closed. Then I reopened the record and checked the instrument details. The deed had been submitted electronically by a document recording service. The return address belonged to a mailbox center in Winchester. The preparer line named Chelsea. That wasn't unusual by itself. Virginia deeds can be prepared by parties to the transaction. Chelsea was also a real estate agent. She knew what information had to appear. Still, seeing her name there changed something. This wasn't a random mistake in the index. Chelsea had prepared the document that carried my false signature. She had received the property under that document. Then, 5 months later, she had sat across from me and called the confirmatory deed standard. My phone buzzed. It was Dad. "Did you look it over?" I stared at his name until the call stopped. A text followed. "Please don't ignore this." I turned the phone face down. For the next 2 hours, I tried to work. I reviewed a judgment search for a purchase in Frederick County. I checked a subdivision plat. I answered 3 emails. I also read the same paragraph 6 times without understanding it. Around 10:30, I took the blue folder into our small conference room and closed the door. The room had no windows except a narrow glass panel beside the frame. I sat at the end of the table and called Dad. He answered immediately. Finally, I'm at work, so am I supposed to wait all day? For what? Your answer. I looked at the confirmatory deed. Who drafted this? There was a pause. Chelsea had someone prepare it. Who? I don't remember the name. There's no attorney listed. Does there need to be? Not necessarily. Then why are you asking? Because I want to know. Dad sighed. You do this every time. You turn a simple family decision into an investigation. That word caught my attention. What did Chelsea tell you this document does? It puts the house where it should have gone. That's not what I asked. It confirms the transfer. What transfer? He went quiet. I could hear a television in the background. Dad kept a small one running in the office above his garage. Sarah, I'm not getting into word games. I'm asking what you believe already happened. She said you'd discussed this. When? I don't know. Over the last few months. What exactly did I agree to? Another pause. She said you agreed the house made more sense with her. You just didn't want the family making a big thing out of it. I pressed my thumb against the edge of the table. Did I tell you that? No, but you don't tell me much anymore. Did I ever tell you I signed a deed? His voice sharpened. This is what I mean. You let your sister take all the risk, then act confused when it's time to finalize things. What risk has she taken? The plans, contractors, materials. She shouldn't have arranged work on property she doesn't own. Dad lowered his voice. See, that right there. What? That tone. Like she's some stranger trying to steal from you. I looked through the glass panel. Lisa crossed the hallway with a stack of folders. I waited until she passed. Has Chelsea shown you any deed with my signature on it? No. The answer came quickly. Are you sure? Why would she? I didn't respond. Dad continued. She showed me the renovation plans. She showed me what the house could be worth. She and Bradley have already put time into this. Time isn't ownership. I know that. Do you? The silence changed. I regretted the question as soon as I asked it. Not because it was unfair, but because it made him defensive before I'd learned anything useful. He said, your sister is trying to improve an asset that's been sitting there. My asset. Your grandmother's house. She left it to me. We all know that, Sarah. The way he said it made the will sound like an inconvenience everyone had politely tolerated. I kept my voice even. I'm still reviewing the document. How long does that take? As long as I need. Chelsea said the contractor needs an answer this week. Then she should tell him she doesn't own the house. Dad hung up. I remained in the conference room for a minute, holding the phone against my ear after the line went dead. He didn't know. At least, I didn't think he did. He believed Chelsea and I had reached some private agreement. He thought the new deed was the final piece, not an attempt to cover an earlier crime. That didn't excuse what he'd said at dinner. He was still willing to push me out of Grandma's house because Chelsea told him it was fair, but he hadn't seen the recorded deed. That mattered. I wrote down the conversation immediately. I included the time, the questions I'd asked, and his exact answers as closely as I remembered them. Then I emailed the note to my personal account. At lunch, I walked to the Winchester City Circuit Court clerk's office. I could access the records online, but I wanted a certified copy. I also wanted to see the recording receipt and any public indexing information attached to the submission. The clerk's office was cool and quiet. A ceiling fan turned above the public terminals. An older man was searching probate records at one computer. Two women stood near the counter discussing marriage licenses. I signed in and waited. A deputy clerk named Marlene called me forward. I'd dealt with her before through work. She wore silver-framed glasses and had a small bowl of wrapped peppermints beside her monitor. "What can I get for you?" she asked. I handed her the instrument number. "I need a certified copy of this deed." She entered the number and looked at the screen. "Quit claim?" "Yes." "You want the whole instrument?" "Everything available with it." She clicked through several windows. "Recording cover sheet too?" "Yes, please." Her eyes moved over the information. If she noticed my name, she didn't react. "That'll be $8. I paid in cash. While the copier ran, I looked at the public counter where recorded documents were returned. I'd stood there many times for clients. Usually the work felt routine. Names moved from one owner to another. Banks appeared and disappeared. Liens attached, then released. That day, every page seemed dangerous. Marlene returned with the copy. A gold seal was pressed into the first page. "Check that for me." I stepped aside and reviewed it. The instrument number matched. The recording date matched. Chelsea's preparer information was clear. My false signature looked even worse on paper. The acknowledgement stated that I had personally appeared, acknowledged the document, and signed it for the purposes contained within. I had done none of those things. "Is something wrong?" Marlene asked. I looked up. "I'm checking the scan quality." She waited. "It's clear," I said. "Thank you." Outside, I sat on a bench near the courthouse and placed the certified copy inside a plain envelope. I called the hotel in Richmond. A woman at the front desk answered. "I need confirmation of a stay from February," I said. "I have the reservation number." She asked for my name and email address. Then she placed me on hold. Cars moved slowly along the street. Someone across the way was pressure washing a sidewalk. Water ran along the curb in a gray line. The woman came back. "I found it. We can email the folio to the address used for the reservation." "Does it show when the keycard was used?" "I can't provide lock records directly. You'd need to contact our security office and they may require a formal request." "That's fine. Please send the folio." "Anything else?" "Can you confirm I checked out in person Friday morning? I'm not able to verify that from this screen." I thanked her and ended the call. The emailed folio arrived before I returned to work. It showed my room charges, parking, and restaurant purchase. It was useful, but not perfect. Somebody could claim I'd left Richmond and driven back to Winchester. I opened the conference app still installed on my phone. My schedule showed the Thursday sessions I'd selected. One presenter had sent attendees a follow-up email containing a link to course materials. I called the conference organizer. The woman who answered introduced herself as Renee. "I'm trying to confirm my attendance at 2 sessions," I said. "Possibly." That wasn't entirely false. The sessions had qualified for professional education hours. She asked for my registration number. Keyboard keys clicked in the background. "I can see your badge was scanned." "Thursday morning," she said. "There's another scan at 1:48 for the fraud session." "What time did that session end?" 3:15. The deed's notarial acknowledgement was dated the same afternoon in Winchester. Even with light traffic, Richmond was more than 2 hours away. "Can you email that attendance record?" "I'll send the certificate. It lists the session and scan time." "Thank you." I wrote her name and the time of the call in my notes. That was the first deliberate choice I made. I wasn't going to confront Chelsea and hope she admitted something. I wasn't going to hand Dad the deed and watch him carry it straight to her. I was going to treat my own family the way I treated a broken title chain. Start with what was recorded. Confirm each date. Preserve every document. Don't assume the story attached to the paper was true. After work, I drove to Cork Street. The front curtains were open. I always left them closed to protect Grandma's furniture from the afternoon sun. I parked across the street and sat in the car. The house looked the same from outside. The green siding needed washing. One porch spindle had started to crack near the bottom. The flower beds were mostly weeds. Then I noticed a white rectangle taped inside the front window. I got out and walked up the path. It was a contractor's permit application checklist. Most of the lines were blank, but someone had written Woods Renovation in the project namespace. I unlocked the front door. The deadbolt worked, but the lower lock had already been turned. Dad's key only fit the deadbolt. I was certain I'd locked both when I left the previous Saturday. I pushed the door open. The living room smelled different. Not bad, just unfamiliar. A sweet perfume hung near the entry. Chelsea wore perfume like that. 3 paint cards rested on Grandma's mantel. Gray, white, and pale blue. A measuring tape lay on the floor near the dining room wall. I walked through each room without touching anything. In the kitchen, someone had taped a note to the cabinet above the sink. "Remove all uppers." Another note on the pantry door read, "Open this wall." The back bedroom had measurements written in pencil beside the window. A business card for a flooring contractor sat on the dresser. Chelsea hadn't been planning to renovate someday. She'd already brought people into my house. I took photographs of every note, every paint card, and the contractor's checklist. Then I checked the windows and both exterior doors. Nothing appeared damaged. Before leaving, I removed Dad's spare key from the lockbox behind the porch column. I'd installed the box for emergencies after Grandma stopped driving. Dad knew the combination. So did Aunt Gail. I put the key in my purse. On the way home, Chelsea called. I let it ring twice before answering through the car speaker. "Hey," she said. Her voice was light. "Dad told me you're getting worked up." I asked him questions. "He said you accused me of taking your house." I asked what the confirmatory deed confirms. "You know what it confirms?" "No, I don't." She gave a small laugh. "Okay, we're doing this." "Doing what?" "The thing where you pretend every conversation we've ever had didn't happen." "What conversation?" "Sarah, come on, I'm listening." She went quiet. I passed a gas station and turned onto Valley Avenue. Peter Higgins's office was somewhere ahead, but I kept driving. Chelsea said, "You told me you weren't emotionally attached to living there." "That's true. You said the place needed work. It does. You said you weren't sure you wanted the responsibility." "Also true. So we made a plan." "No, you made a plan. You knew I was moving forward. I knew you wanted the house. That isn't permission." Her voice lost some of its softness. "Dad is right. You do this on purpose." "Do what?" "Make people beg you." I tightened my hands on the steering wheel. "Have you been inside the house?" A pause. Dad let me in. "When?" "A few times." "Did you bring contractors?" "I needed estimates." "You didn't ask me. I didn't think I had to. That was the small confirmation I needed." Chelsea didn't sound confused about ownership. She sounded inconvenienced by it. "Don't go inside again," I said. She laughed once. "You're being ridiculous. I'm changing the locks." "Sarah, don't enter the house without my permission. You really want to do this over a key." "It isn't about a key." "Then what is it about?" I almost told her. The certified deed was in my bag on the passenger seat. Peter Higgins's name was written across the bottom of my notes. I could have asked her why she had filed it. I could have told her where I'd been that Thursday. I could have listened for the change in her breathing. Instead, I said, "It's about you acting like my answer doesn't matter." She was silent for several seconds. Then her voice became calm again. "I think you should sleep on this before you make things worse." "For who?" She ended the call. I drove directly to a locksmith. The owner agreed to meet me at Cork Street the next morning. When I got home, I placed the certified deed, the conference certificate, the hotel folio, and my notes inside a red accordion folder. Then I opened my computer and searched Peter Higgins again. His business page listed evening appointments. There was a button that said, "Request a signing." I didn't click it. I wrote down the office address and his posted hours on a clean sheet of paper. The next step was no longer a family conversation. The locksmith arrived at 8 the next morning in a white van with a dented rear door. His name was Martin. He carried a plastic toolbox onto the porch and asked whether I wanted the deadbolt rekeyed or replaced. "Replace everything," I said. "Recent break-in?" "No." He waited, probably expecting more. "Someone has a key who shouldn't. That happens more often than break-ins." He removed the deadbolt while I stood in the entry. Each turn of his screwdriver sounded sharp in the empty house. When he reached the lower lock, he frowned. "This one's newer." "How new?" "Hard to say. A year? Maybe less." I didn't install it. He tilted the latch toward the window. "Could have been changed without replacing the outside hardware." "See the scratches here?" I leaned closer. Fresh marks circled 2 screws inside the plate. "Can someone change which key works without it looking different?" "Sure, if they know the brand." Dad's spare key had opened the deadbolt. Chelsea could have used that to enter, then had the lower cylinder rekeyed for herself. I took a photograph. Martin looked at me, but didn't ask. He replaced both locks and handed me 4 new keys in a small paper envelope. "You want the old cylinders?" "Yes." Most people don't. I do. He dropped them into a clear bag and wrote the date on the invoice. I paid by credit card so the transaction would have a record. While he packed his tools, a dark SUV slowed in front of the house. Chelsea's SUV. She stopped beside the curb but didn't get out. Martin carried his toolbox past me. Chelsea watched him cross the lawn, then looked toward the front door. I raised one hand. She drove away. A text arrived before she reached the corner. This is childish. I took a screenshot and saved it. Then I walked through the house again. The paint cards were gone. So was the flooring contractor's business card. I had left them where they were the previous evening. I knew that because I'd photographed them. Someone had come back after I left. The notes remained taped to the cabinets and pantry door, but the measuring tape had disappeared from the living room. I checked the back door. It was locked. The lower front lock must have belonged to Chelsea. She had entered once more before I could change it and removed anything that showed contractors had been there. I called Martin before his van left the block. Can you add something to the invoice? He came back up the walk. What do you need? That the lower lock showed recent tool marks and used a different key from the deadbolt. He considered that. I can write what I observed. I can't say when it happened or who did it. That's fine. He added 2 lines and initialed them. After he left, I called Dad. He answered with, "What did you do?" "Good morning. Chelsea says you changed the locks." "I did." "You didn't even tell me." "Why would I? I've always had a key." I asked Chelsea not to enter again. She drove by while the locksmith was here. She was checking on the contractors. "She doesn't have contractors at my house." Dad made a frustrated sound. "You're blowing up an entire plan because you need to prove a point." "What plan?" "The renovation. Who agreed to it?" "We discussed this Sunday." "No, you gave me a deed and told me to sign. Because you've been dragging your feet for nearly 2 years. I never agreed to give Chelsea the property. She says otherwise." "What exactly does she say I agreed to?" Dad didn't answer. I heard a cabinet close on his end. "Did you give Chelsea the spare key?" I asked. "She needed to get inside." "So yes. You weren't doing anything with the house. I was maintaining it. Maintaining it isn't a plan. It's mine. I don't need a plan you approve." His breathing became louder. "You know, your grandmother would hate what you're doing to this family. That sentence landed, but I didn't give him the reaction he wanted. Did Chelsea change the lower lock?" "What? The deadbolt still worked with your key? The lower lock didn't. Did she have it rekeyed?" "I don't know anything about locks." "Ask her." "You ask her." I did. She hung up. "Maybe because you accused her of breaking into a house she believed she was about to own. She was never about to own it." Dad was quiet. Then he said, "You need to be careful." It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a warning from someone who thought I was damaging my own position. "About what?" "You've always been stubborn. There's a point where stubborn becomes cruel." He ended the call before I could answer. I stood in Grandma's kitchen with the phone in my hand. The note above the sink moved slightly in the air from the ceiling vent. "Remove all uppers." I peeled it from the cabinet and placed it in the red folder. Then I removed the note from the pantry door. Both were written in Chelsea's handwriting. I recognized the narrow capital letters from years of birthday cards and grocery lists. I drove to work and locked the red folder in the bottom drawer of my desk. I had 2 title searches due before lunch. I completed them carefully, then waited until my break to open the Winchester records again. The first search I'd run had been by property address. That had shown me the quitclaim deed. This time I searched Chelsea's name as grantee. The quitclaim appeared immediately. Below it was a deed of trust recorded in March. Chelsea Woods and Bradley Woods were listed as borrowers. Shenandoah Community Bank was listed as lender. The secured property was 214 Cork Street. I opened the document. The first page described a home equity line of credit. The maximum principal was $175,000. I read it twice. Then I checked the legal description. It matched Grandma's property. The deed of trust had been recorded 5 weeks after the quitclaim deed. It stated Chelsea held title to the property and had the right to pledge it as collateral. That was the complication I hadn't considered. Chelsea hadn't just put my name on a false deed so she could renovate the house. She had borrowed against it. I printed the deed of trust and placed each page face down beside the printer. My hands were cold even though the office was warm. A deed can be challenged. A false transfer can be set aside. But once a lender becomes involved, the problem widens. The bank had advanced money because the public records showed Chelsea as owner. From the bank's perspective, it had accepted a lien against property she appeared to control. If the deed was fraudulent, the bank's security might be worthless. That meant there were now at least 3 separate questions. Who signed my name? What did Chelsea tell the notary? Where had the loan money gone? I wasn't ready to answer any of them. I clicked through the remaining pages. The line of credit had closed in March. The document allowed Chelsea and Bradley to draw funds as needed, up to the full amount. The public record didn't show how much they had taken. It only showed what the house secured. A loan officer's name appeared on the closing cover sheet. There was also a closing reference number. I copied both into my notes. I considered calling the bank. Then I imagined what would happen after that call. A fraud report would move from the branch to security. Someone would contact Chelsea as the borrower. Chelsea would call Dad. Documents could disappear. Stories could change. Peter Higgins might hear about it before I spoke to him. I closed the bank's website without dialing. Lisa appeared beside my desk a few minutes later. "You okay?" I turned over the last page. "Yeah. You've been staring at that paper like it insulted your mother. Complicated chain. Work file?" "No." She glanced toward her office. "Take a long lunch if you need one." "I'm fine. You're always fine." She said it without judgment. That made it worse. "I may need a personal day this week. Take one. I'll let you know." Lisa nodded and walked away. I opened my phone and searched the number from Peter's business page. I still didn't call. Before I approached him, I wanted to understand how the bank closing connected to his notarization. The quitclaim deed had been recorded in February. The bank loan closed in March. Peter's seal appeared only on the deed that put the property into Chelsea's name. That suggested he might not have been the bank's closing notary. Or the bank might have received the already recorded deed and relied on it without asking how it was signed. Either way, Peter was the first person outside my family whose name appeared on the transfer. I searched his office address on a map. It was part of a low brick building between an insurance agency and a tax preparer. I had driven past it the previous evening without noticing. His listed hours began at 10, but the page said, mobile appointments were available before and after business hours. I used the contact form. I need a notarization connected to a real estate document recorded in February. I'd prefer to discuss the document in person. "Are you available Thursday afternoon?" I entered my first name only. Then I waited. He replied 20 minutes later. "Thursday at 4:30 works. Please bring the complete unsigned document and valid identification." I wrote the appointment in my paper calendar. I didn't add it to the electronic one Chelsea had once seen over my shoulder at Dad's house. At 3 that afternoon, Bradley called me. He'd never called me directly unless he needed Dad's address or wanted to know what wine to bring to dinner. I let it go to voicemail. His message was short. "Sarah, it's Bradley. Call me when you can. We need to clear up this mess with the house." I saved the voicemail. 10 minutes later, he called again. I answered. "What do you need?" "Okay. First, nobody's trying to steal anything from you." I looked at the deed of trust on my desk. I didn't say they were. "Chelsea says you're acting like she broke into Fort Knox. She entered my property without permission. Your dad gave her a key. He didn't own the house." "He's your father. That doesn't make his key transferable." Bradley exhaled. "Listen, we've already spent money." "On what?" "Plans, deposits, materials." "How much?" "That's between me and Chelsea." "Then why are you calling me?" "Because your decision affects us." "What decision?" "The decision to back out." I never agreed. "Chelsea says you did. Ask her to show you where." He was silent. I could hear traffic around him and the ding of a service bay door. "People don't always put family agreements in writing," he said. "You put the loan in writing." The words were out before I decided to say them. The silence on the line became complete. Bradley didn't ask what loan. Instead, he said, "What have you been looking at?" That answer told me he knew exactly what I meant. The public record. He lowered his voice. "Sarah, don't start calling people." "I haven't. The bank doesn't need to get dragged into a family disagreement. You used the house as collateral. That was part of Chelsea's plan." "Did you receive money?" "It's a credit line." "That isn't what I asked. We've got business expenses. The renovation was supposed to create equity in property you didn't own. Chelsea told me the transfer was handled. Did you see me sign anything?" "No, but why would I?" "Because my name was on the deed." He didn't answer. I heard someone in the background ask him about a vehicle key. Bradley covered the phone, spoke briefly, then came back. "Look, I'm not getting into paperwork, that's Chelsea's side. But you signed the bank documents. I signed for the line. I didn't prepare the deed. How much did you draw? That's private. You borrowed against my house. Legally, it's Chelsea's house right now." He said it too quickly, like he'd repeated it to himself before calling. I wrote the sentence down. "Who told you that?" "The county record. The same record you don't want me reading." He swore under his breath. "Can we meet somewhere?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I don't know enough yet. You know enough to cause trouble." I looked toward Lisa's closed door. "How much time do you have?" He didn't answer. "Bradley? This doesn't need to become bigger than it is. It's already $175,000. That's the limit, not the balance." "So, there is a balance." Another pause. "We're using the money for legitimate business purposes." "What business?" "You know I own the dealership. And Chelsea said the loan was for renovations. It's flexible capital. That phrase sounded borrowed from a banker. How much is left?" "Talk to your sister." He hung up. I saved the call log and added notes while the conversation was fresh. Bradley knew about the line. He knew money had been drawn. He also knew the funds weren't limited to the house. He didn't know how Chelsea had obtained my signature. At least, that was how he sounded. He treated the deed as her problem and the money as his. My phone rang again. This time, it was Chelsea. I silenced it. A message appeared. "Whatever you think you found, you don't understand it." Another followed. "Call me before you embarrass yourself." Then Dad wrote in the family group chat, "Everyone needs to calm down. Sarah, stop threatening people. Chelsea, give her space. We'll meet Sunday and fix this." I hadn't threatened anyone. I placed the phone face down and pulled the certified deed from the red folder. Peter's seal sat beneath the signature that wasn't mine. Now there was a bank behind that signature, $175,000 at risk, and a family already trying to keep me from asking where it went. On Thursday afternoon, I left work early and drove to Valley Avenue. Peter's office was at the end of the building, beside a vending machine that hummed louder than the air conditioner. The door had his name in white vinyl lettering. Under it were the words Mobile Notary and Loan Signing Services. I arrived 10 minutes early. Through the glass, I could see a narrow waiting area and a desk behind a half wall. Peter sat at a computer with his sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked like his photograph, only more tired. I stepped inside. "Sarah?" "Yes." He stood and held out his hand. "Peter Higgins, you said you had a real estate document?" "I do." I handed him the confirmatory deed, not the recorded quitclaim. He took it to his desk and gestured toward the chair across from him. "Are all the parties coming?" "No, I'm still reviewing it." He stopped turning the pages. "I thought you needed a notarization. I need to understand what it does first. I'm not an attorney, I know. I can notarize signatures. I can't advise you about the document." "That's fine." He read the title at the top. "Confirmatory deed," he said. "Is there a mistake in an earlier recording?" "That's what I'm trying to determine." He moved to the legal description. His eyes slowed. I watched his face when he reached the property address. There was no dramatic reaction. His forehead tightened slightly. Then he looked back at the first page. "Where did you get this?" "My father gave it to me." "Who prepared it?" "My sister." He closed the document. "I'm not comfortable handling this." "Why?" You should take it to an attorney. I probably will. He pushed the pages toward me. I left them where they were. Do you remember notarizing another deed for this property? Peter looked at me carefully. I handle a lot of real estate documents. This one was recorded in February. That doesn't narrow it much. It transferred the property from Sarah Jimenez to Chelsea Woods. His eyes shifted to the driver's license I'd placed on the desk when I sat down. He read my name. Then he looked at me. You're Sarah Jimenez? Yes. He leaned back in his chair. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. I opened my purse and removed the certified quitclaim deed. I need to know how my signature got notarized. He didn't touch the document. I think this appointment is over. I wasn't in Winchester that day. You need an attorney. I have conference records showing I was in Richmond. Peter stood. I'm asking you to leave. I'm not accusing you of signing my name. That's not the point. What is the point? He walked to the office door but didn't open it. The point is, I can't discuss a transaction with someone who wasn't my client. My house was transferred. You need to contact the parties. I did. One of them told me to stop calling people. Peter's hand remained on the doorknob. I kept my voice low. Did you meet me in February? He looked at my face for a long time. No. The answer was quiet. I didn't move. Then why does this say I appeared before you? Peter released the doorknob. He walked back to his chair and sat down. He rubbed both hands over his face, then adjusted his glasses. Show me the instrument. I slid the certified copy across the desk. He checked the recording number, the date, and his seal. When he reached the signature page, he pressed his lips together. That's my stamp. I know. And my commission number, yes. He looked at the preparer line. Chelsea Woods. You remember her? He didn't answer immediately. I remember the appointment. Was she alone? Yes. My fingers tightened around the edge of my purse. What did she tell you? Peter lowered his voice even though the office was empty. She said the document had already been signed. By me. She said her sister signed it. Did you ask where I was? She said you couldn't attend. Then you knew I didn't appear before you. He removed his glasses and cleaned them with the edge of his shirt. She told me the transfer had been agreed to. She said the deed needed to be filed quickly because of a financing deadline. You notarized a signature without the signer present. I took a shortcut. That's one way to say it. His eyes came up. I didn't forge anything. I didn't say you did. You're thinking it. I'm thinking my name is on a deed I never signed. Peter put his glasses back on. The signature was already there when she arrived. Did you watch Chelsea sign anything? There were closing service forms. What kind? Administrative forms. Signing receipt. Identity confirmation. Whose identity? He hesitated. Chelsea's. She was the person delivering the package. What identification did she give you for me? She had a copy. A copy of what? I'm not discussing the file without a formal request. You already notarized the deed without seeing me. Now you're worried about procedure? His face colored. That isn't fair. No, it isn't. The words sat between us. Peter turned the deed around so the signature faced me. I believed her, he said. Why? She knew the property details. She knew the grantor information. She had the full deed prepared. She said you worked in title and understood exactly what you were signing. That should have made you more careful. Yes. It was the first answer he gave without defending himself. He tapped the edge of the paper. She said you were her younger sister. She said you'd signed before leaving for a business trip and had forgotten to get it notarized. I thought about the timing. Chelsea knew about the Richmond conference. Dad had mentioned it at dinner the week before I left. What else did she say? That the deed was part of a larger family arrangement. She made it sound routine. Did you call me? No. Did you ask her to bring me in later? No. Did you compare the signature to anything? She had supporting documents. What documents? I need to review the file. Where is it? Peter folded his hands. The signing service requires me to retain a compliance record. Is it here? I'm not giving it to you today. I didn't ask you to give it to me. I asked whether it exists. He looked toward a row of gray filing cabinets behind his desk. Yes. The room became very still. Until then, I'd had documents proving where I was. I had a signature I knew wasn't mine. I had Chelsea's name as the person who prepared and received the deed. Now I had something outside my own memory. The notary admitted I'd never appeared. Chelsea had walked into his office alone with my name already written on the page. That changed my position completely. If you're still with me, leave the word notary in the comments. I pointed to the certified copy. Do not destroy anything connected to that appointment. Peter's expression hardened. Are you threatening me? No, I'm telling you the document is disputed. I know what you're telling me. Then preserve the file. You need to leave. I stood and gathered the confirmatory deed. Peter kept the certified copy beneath his hand. That belongs to me, I said. He lifted his hand. I placed it back in the envelope. He walked me to the door. Before I stepped outside, I turned. Did Chelsea mention a bank? She said financing. I don't remember the lender. Did Bradley come with her? No. Did you speak to him? No. Did you speak to my father? I only dealt with Chelsea. That answer mattered too. Outside, the late afternoon heat felt heavy after the cold office. I sat in my car and wrote down everything Peter had said. I included where he'd paused, where he'd refused, and the exact words he used. The signature was already there when she arrived. I believed her. I took a shortcut. I only dealt with Chelsea. I emailed the notes to myself before pulling out of the parking lot. Then I called Aunt Gail. I wasn't ready to tell her about the forged deed. I wanted to know what Dad had been saying. She answered on the fourth ring. Are you working? Just left. You sound strange. I'm tired. That family dinner go badly? I looked through the windshield at Peter's office. How did you know? Your father called me Monday. What did he say? That you're refusing to let Chelsea improve your grandmother's house. Did he mention a deed? No. He said there was paperwork you wouldn't sign. What does he think I agreed to? Aunt Gail made a small sound. Sarah, I don't get involved when Alan starts deciding what everybody should do. I need to know what he told you. He said Chelsea and Bradley had plans for the house. He said you'd been considering giving it to them for a while. I never considered that. I didn't think you had. Why? Because you told me last Christmas you wanted to repair the porch and maybe move in. I remembered that conversation. We'd been washing dishes at Dad's house while Chelsea showed Bradley photographs of a vacation rental. Did you tell Dad? I said I was surprised. What did he say? That you change your mind depending on who asks. I closed my eyes. Has Chelsea talked to you about the house? Not recently. What does recently mean? Aunt Gail was quiet. She called in the spring. About Cork Street? No. She needed money. I sat straighter. How much? She didn't say at first. She called it a short-term family loan. For what? Bradley's business. Something about inventory financing. Did you give it to her? No. Why not? Because when I asked what she needed, she started crying and wouldn't give me a number. Chelsea only cries when she wants you to stop asking practical questions. That was such an exact description that I almost smiled. When was this? Late April, I think. The loan against the house had closed in March. Did Dad know? She asked me not to tell him. Did you? I told him she'd called. He said Bradley's dealership was doing fine. Did he offer her money? I don't know. I wrote April beside Gail's name. Sarah, what's going on? I'm still figuring it out. Is the house okay? Yes. Are you? I will be. She didn't push. Your grandmother wanted you to have that place, she said. Whatever Alan says, don't let him turn her choice into an argument she isn't here to answer. I looked at the office behind me. I won't. After we hung up, I drove home instead of going to Dad's. His Sunday meeting could wait. I searched Virginia real estate attorneys and added the words, forged deed. Most results were general firm pages describing title disputes. I read until the language started repeating. Then I found Terry Huang. Her biography said she handled real estate fraud, quiet title actions, and disputed conveyances. Her office was near the Walking Mall in Winchester. She'd represented homeowners, lenders, and title insurers. I called before I could talk myself into waiting. A receptionist answered. "I need a consultation about a deed recorded under my name," I said. "Are you disputing the terms?" "I'm disputing the signature." The receptionist stopped typing. Was the document already recorded? Yes. Is there a lender involved? Yes. She placed me on hold. Terry came on the line less than a minute later. Her voice was direct. "Tell me only the basic timeline. My grandmother left me a house in 2024. A quitclaim deed was recorded this February, transferring it from me to my sister. I found it Monday. I didn't sign it. Was it notarized? Yes. Have you contacted the notary? I just left his office." Terry was silent for a beat. What did he say? That I was never there. My sister brought the deed already signed. Did he give you that in writing? No. Did you record the conversation? No. Did he say he has a file? Yes. Do not contact him again. I gripped the phone. Why? Because he now knows he has exposure. From this point forward, communications should be preserved and formal. He told me he took a shortcut. That shortcut may be what keeps you from losing the house. I looked at the red folder on the passenger seat. The bank recorded a home equity line for $175,000. Do you know the balance? No. Have you contacted the bank? No. Good. Don't yet. That was the first time all week someone had confirmed my restraint made sense. Terry continued. Has anyone asked you to sign new paperwork? Yes. A confirmatory deed. Do not sign it. I wasn't going to. Don't mark it, amend it, initial it, or return the original. Bring it to me. What would signing it do? It could be used to argue that you approved the earlier transfer after the fact. The question I'd asked at Dad's table finally had an answer. The new deed wasn't correcting a harmless error. It was trying to make the false one mine. When can you meet? I asked. Tomorrow morning. I'll be there. Terry gave me the address and told me what to bring. After the call, I sat in the car for another minute. Then I texted Dad. I can't meet Sunday. I need more time to review the paperwork. He replied almost immediately. How much more time? I wrote. I'll let you know. Chelsea's response arrived in the family chat before Dad could answer. There's nothing left to review. I saved that message too. The following morning, I carried the red folder into Terry Huang's office. Terry's receptionist copied my identification, then took me into a conference room with a square table and no decorative clutter. Terry entered carrying a yellow legal pad. She didn't offer broad reassurance. She sat across from me and opened the red folder. Start with the clean deed from the estate. I handed it to her. She checked the recording stamp, legal description, and probate reference. Then she compared it to the quitclaim deed. When she reached the signature, she asked me to sign my name 3 times on a blank sheet. I did. She placed the examples beside the deed. The beginning is close, she said. The rest isn't. That's what I saw. People concentrate on the first letter. She read the notarial acknowledgement, then moved to my conference records. The timing helps. It doesn't prove who signed, but it strongly supports that you didn't appear before Higgins. He admitted I wasn't there. We need him to repeat that in a form he can't quietly change. She read my notes from the conversation. You wrote these immediately? In the parking lot. Good. She looked at the deed of trust next. When she saw the amount, she drew a line beneath it. Your sister didn't need the house, she said. She needed its equity. I'd been thinking the same thing, but hearing Terry say, it made the order clear. The house wasn't the end of Chelsea's plan, it was the collateral. What happens if the money is gone? I asked. That depends on where it went and what the bank knew. First, we establish that the deed is false. Then we address the bank's lien. Can the bank take the house? It can try to enforce its recorded security unless we challenge it. How quickly? Has the line defaulted? I don't know. Then we find out. Terry wrote 3 letters while I sat there. The first notified Peter to preserve every record connected to the February appointment. The second went to his signing service. The third notified Shenandoah Community Bank that I disputed the deeds supporting its loan. She did not accuse Peter of forgery. She stated that I denied appearing before him and denied signing the document. "Will the bank call Chelsea?" I asked. "Eventually." "How long do we have?" "That's what worries me. Your family isn't asking you to sign because they suddenly care about clean records. Something has created urgency." I told her about Aunt Gail's call with Chelsea and Bradley's warning not to contact the bank. Terry wrote April beside the March loan date. "Inventory financing," she said. "Do you know Bradley's lender?" "No." "Does the dealership operate through a company?" "Yes." "Woods Auto Sales." She turned her laptop toward herself and opened Virginia's court record system. Bradley's business appeared in a pending civil case filed in Frederick County. The plaintiff was a regional lender that financed dealership inventory. Terry opened the docket. The complaint had been filed the previous Friday. Attached to it was a default notice. I read the first page while Terry scanned the rest. Floor plan financing is how many dealerships pay for vehicles before selling them. The lender advances money for the inventory. When a car sells, the dealer is supposed to repay the amount tied to that vehicle. The complaint alleged that Woods Auto Sales had sold multiple vehicles without sending the required payments to the lender. The notice gave Bradley 21 days to cure the default. After that, the lender could demand the remaining balance and take possession of financed inventory. I checked the date. The deadline fell in early August. "That's their contractor deadline," I said. Terry looked up. "It isn't about a contractor. No, they need your signature before this lender reaches them. Why would signing help now? They already have the credit line. It may keep Shenandoah Community Bank from questioning the collateral. If that bank learns the deed is forged, it can freeze any remaining funds and demand repayment." I remembered Bradley's wording. That's the limit, not the balance. He'd carefully avoided saying how much remained. Terry continued reading. "The complaint says the dealership's financial statements showed an emergency capital contribution in March, the same month as the home equity line?" "Yes." "Does it say where the contribution came from?" "No. But the timing is useful. The line had closed, money had entered the dealership. The floor plan lender still declared a default 4 months later. Whatever Chelsea and Bradley had done with the house's equity, it hadn't fixed the business. Terry downloaded the complaint and attached exhibits. Then she searched Chelsea's license. It was active. Her brokerage affiliation hadn't changed. There were no public disciplinary actions. "That's not the same as her business doing well," Terry said. "Do you know anyone at her brokerage?" "No one I'd trust with this. Don't call them. We can work from records." At home that evening, I looked at Chelsea's business pages. For years, she'd posted photographs outside houses with oversized keys and sold signs. She liked captions about winning offers and dream homes. The recent page looked active until I checked the dates. The same kitchen renovation post had appeared 3 times. A photograph of Chelsea beside a closing table was from the previous summer. Her newest client review was almost a year old. She still posted every week, but she wasn't posting sales. I searched her name in the local property transfers published by the newspaper. During her best year, she'd appeared regularly as the listing or buyer's agent. Over the previous 6 months, her name appeared once. I called Aunt Gail again. Did Chelsea say why she needed the money in April? She said the dealership had a temporary cash flow problem. Did she mention her own work? She said the market had slowed. Anything else? Aunt Gail thought for a moment. She complained that people expected her to keep spending money to look successful. What did that mean? Clothes, dinners, advertising? She said clients don't hire an agent who looks worried. That sounded like Chelsea. Even when we were younger, she believed appearance came first. If she could create the picture, everybody else would eventually accept it as fact. Did she mention Grandma's house? Not directly. What did she say directly? That she'd been left out when she was the one who could have made something valuable from it. There it was. Not a second motive. The same one she'd carried since the will reading. Chelsea believed Grandma had given the house to the wrong sister. When her business slowed and Bradley's dealership needed money, she treated that belief like permission. Aunt Gail said she also asked whether you still kept papers at the house. What kind of papers? She said tax records and old mail. I told her I didn't know. When was that? The same call. Why didn't you mention it before? I didn't think it mattered. I thought she was trying to figure out what expenses you were paying. I went quiet. The copy of my identification Peter mentioned had to come from somewhere. I kept tax files in a locking cabinet at my apartment, not at Cork Street. But after Grandma died, I'd stored a small box of personal papers in the back bedroom while clearing her desk. The box included copies of insurance documents and utility applications. Some of them had my signature. Chelsea had been inside the house with Dad's key. Did you tell her where I kept anything? No. Did Dad? I don't know. After we hung up, I drove to Cork Street. The new locks were undisturbed. Inside, I went straight to the back bedroom. The box sat on the closet shelf where I remembered leaving it. The lid wasn't secured. I had never taped it because the box contained ordinary paperwork. I carried it to the kitchen table and emptied it. Insurance statements, a copy of the water service application, receipts for roof repairs, an old vehicle registration renewal. The original documents weren't especially sensitive, but several carried versions of my signature. I couldn't prove Chelsea had copied one. I couldn't even prove she had opened the box. Still, she had asked Aunt Gail about papers. Then she'd entered the house without permission. Later, a deed appeared with a careful imitation of my name. I photographed the contents and took the box home. Dad called while I was driving. "Are you coming Sunday?" I said I needed more time. "We're not doing another interrogation. We're having dinner." "Who's we?" "Chelsea and Bradley." "Gail may come." "Why?" "Because this has gotten out of control. What does Aunt Gail have to do with the deed?" "Nothing. She's family." I could hear the fatigue in his voice. He still thought the problem was my refusal. "Did Chelsea tell you Bradley's dealership is in default?" Dad didn't answer. "So you know. They're working through a temporary issue. There's a lawsuit. Businesses get sued. The lender says Bradley sold cars and didn't repay the inventory advances. That's his concern. Then why does he need my house? He doesn't need your house. Chelsea borrowed against it." Dad went silent. For a moment, I thought he finally understood. Then he said, "She told me the financing was part of the renovation. Did she tell you the money went into Bradley's dealership? That's not what she said. Ask her. I'm asking you to stop assuming everything she does is dishonest. I almost told him about Peter." I stopped myself. "Did you know about the loan before Sunday dinner?" "No." His answer sounded genuine. "Did you know the confirmatory deed referred to an earlier transfer?" She said it corrected a technical issue. "Did you ask what issue?" "Why would I? Chelsea handles property transactions for a living." "So do I." "That's different." "Why?" He had no answer. I said, "I'll come Sunday." His voice softened immediately. "Good. We can settle this. I'll listen. That's all I'm asking." It wasn't, but I let him believe it. On Sunday, I arrived at 6. Aunt Gail's car wasn't there. Bradley's truck was parked behind Chelsea's SUV. Dad opened the door before I knocked. They're in the dining room. No food was cooking. The confirmatory deed lay on the table beside a black pen. Chelsea remained seated when I entered. "Thank you for coming," she said. Bradley didn't look at me. I sat down but didn't touch the paper. Dad took the chair at the head of the table. "Everybody needs to say what they need to say." Chelsea folded her hands. "I'm sorry I went into the house without asking. It sounded rehearsed. I thought we had an understanding. Clearly we didn't." I waited. She continued, "Bradley and I have had a difficult year. We were trying to build something that would help everyone. How would borrowing against Grandma's house help everyone?" Dad looked at Chelsea. She shot him a quick glance. "The line was supposed to fund the renovation," she said. "How much went to the renovation?" "We haven't started yet, so where did it go?" Bradley leaned forward. "The money supported our businesses while we prepared the project. How much is left?" "That isn't relevant," Chelsea said. "It's secured by my house. It's secured by the house that was transferred to me. using a deed I didn't sign. Dad's head turned toward me. Chelsea didn't react at first. Then she gave a tired smile. You did agree. I asked whether I signed it. You agreed to the transfer. That isn't an answer. Bradley stared at the table. Dad looked between us. What deed is she talking about? Chelsea reached for the confirmatory document. This is why we need this one. The first filing wasn't clear enough. The first filing was clear, I said. It says I personally appeared before a notary. Dad frowned. Did you? No. Chelsea spoke before he could respond. She doesn't remember every document she signs at work. This wasn't at work. You signed before your Richmond trip. That was the exact story Peter had been given. Chelsea knew the date was a problem. She'd built her explanation around it. Where did I sign? At Dad's. Dad looked at her. When? You weren't home. I turned to him. Did I ever come here to sign a deed? No. Chelsea's mouth tightened. It was months ago. Maybe it was my house. Was Peter Higgins there? I don't remember the notary's name. You met him alone. Her face changed. It was small, but I saw it. Bradley saw it too. Chelsea recovered quickly. I dropped off paperwork. That doesn't mean you didn't sign it. Where did the loan money go? Bradley rubbed his jaw. Chelsea said, We drew the full line. Dad stared at her. All of it? We had obligations. The dealership, I said, and my business. We were covering expenses until things improved. They didn't improve. Bradley pushed his chair back. This isn't helping. I looked at the pen beside the confirmatory deed. The complete reason for the dinner was sitting in front of me. Chelsea's sales had dried up. Bradley's dealership had already been short on its inventory loan. She took the house because it had no mortgage and enough equity to raise $175,000. They spent all of it trying to keep their businesses alive. Now the dealership lender had given Bradley 21 days. If Shenandoah Community Bank questioned Chelsea's title, the line would collapse at the same time. Chelsea needed my signature before either lender looked too closely. She wasn't asking me to give her a house. She was asking me to take responsibility for what she had already done with it. I picked up the pen. Chelsea's shoulders lowered. Dad exhaled. Then I placed the pen on the other side of the table. I need 1 more week, I said. Chelsea stared at me. For what? To decide whether I can live with this. She mistook that for hesitation. Her voice became gentle. Of course. I stood and took my purse. Dad walked me to the door. Thank you for finally thinking about your sister, he said. I left without correcting him. The next morning, Terry called. Peter's signing service responded to our preservation letter, she said. They have the complete compliance file. What does it contain? I asked. An appointment receipt, document checklist, identification notes, and Peter's signing log. Did he write that I wasn't there? Not exactly. Come to my office. I left work at lunch and brought the red folder. Terry had already printed the signing service's response. The company had sent it through a secure link after Peter authorized the release on advice from his attorney. That detail surprised me. He has an attorney? I asked. He should. Does that mean he's refusing to cooperate? No. It means he understands his commission is in danger. Terry handed me a 2-page statement Peter had signed. He admitted Chelsea brought the quitclaim deed to his office already bearing my signature. He admitted I wasn't present. He said Chelsea represented that I had signed voluntarily before leaving for Richmond. Peter also admitted he completed the acknowledgement anyway. He called it an error in procedure. Terry called it evidence. He still says he believed the signature was yours, she said. His statement protects him from being accused of creating it, but it confirms Chelsea was the only person at the appointment. I turned to the next page. It was a scan of a logbook entry. The printed fields listed the date, time, document type, property address, and supposed signer. The supposed signer was me. A handwritten note beside the address said, "Delivered by Chelsea Woods." Below that was an ink impression in a small rectangular box. At first, I thought it was a smudge from the scanner. Then I saw the ridges. Is that a fingerprint? A left thumbprint, Terry said. Whose? That's what we're going to establish. I moved the page closer. The print wasn't large. It was dark in the center and lighter around one edge. Beneath it, Peter had written, "Identity mark collected per service agreement." Why would he take Chelsea's thumbprint if she wasn't the signer? The signing service required an identity mark for every loan-related real estate package. Peter seems to have treated Chelsea as the presenting party while recording you as the signer. That makes no sense. No, it documents a shortcut that should never have happened. I looked at the print again. Did Peter say whose thumb it was? He says Chelsea's. But a statement from a notary trying to limit his own damage isn't enough. We need an independent comparison. My own notary commission required a fingerprint exemplar held with my state file. I'd submitted it when Blue Ridge Title helped process my commission paperwork. Terry placed an authorization form in front of me. This allows the state records office to release your exemplar directly to a certified fingerprint examiner. I signed it. What about Chelsea's? Virginia's real estate board has a fingerprint card from her licensing file. Will they give it to you? Not through an ordinary records request. Terry had prepared a verified complaint for quiet title. It asked the court to declare the February deed void and remove the bank's lien from my property. She planned to file it with requests for expedited preservation and limited third-party records. The bank and licensing board won't hand sensitive records to anyone who asks, she said. The court process gives us a legitimate route. I'm also submitting the package to the Commonwealth's Attorney's Economic Crimes Unit. I looked up. Today? Yes. Will they contact Chelsea? That decision belongs to them. I'm requesting that they preserve the licensing fingerprint card and coordinate the comparison before anyone is alerted. Can they do it that quickly? They can if they see a current risk to real property and loan collateral. Terry turned the complaint toward me. Read this carefully. Filing means you are formally challenging the deed. Your family may learn about it before you're ready. I'm ready to challenge it. That isn't the same as being ready for what they'll say. I know. She waited until I'd read each page. The complaint was direct. It said I own the house through Grandma's estate. It said I had not executed the quitclaim deed. It said the notarial certificate was false because I had never appeared. It did not claim Peter forged my name. It did not claim Dad knew. It identified Chelsea as the beneficiary of the transfer and the borrower who later pledged the house to the bank. I signed the verification before another notary in Terry's office. Terry did not notarize it herself. She said she preferred one less argument about her role in the case. Afterward, she made copies of my conference records and certified deed. Now we wait for the state files, she said. Waiting lasted 3 days. During those 3 days, Chelsea sent me 6 messages. The first asked whether I'd made a decision. The second said Bradley's contractors needed access. The third included a photograph of the porch with digital gray paint added to the siding. The fourth said Dad was losing sleep. The fifth said Grandma wanted the family to benefit, not just you. The sixth was an invitation to a renovation kickoff cookout at Cork Street the following Saturday. I read that message twice. "You're inviting people to my house?" I wrote. She replied, "Our house, once you stop punishing everyone." I sent the screenshot to Terry. She called me immediately. "Don't cancel it." I didn't agree to it. "Tell her you'll attend." "At my own house?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because she believes you're still considering the confirmatory deed. She wants me to sign it there. Most likely." I looked at the invitation. It promised barbecue, music, and a first look at the renovation plans. Chelsea had invited extended family, neighbors, and several people from her real estate business. She's turning it into a public signing. Then let her keep believing that. I didn't answer Chelsea yet. The next morning, Terry received my exemplar. The examiner met us at her office that afternoon. His name was David Kane. He carried a hard case containing a scanner, magnifying lenses, and several clear overlays. Terry introduced him as a certified latent print examiner who had worked with state and local agencies before moving into private practice. He didn't ask about my family. He started with the logbook scan. "This is usable for exclusion," he said. "A positive identification may require the original or a high-resolution certified image. The signing service has the original page," Terry said. "They'll need to produce it. They've agreed to overnight a certified scan. The original will remain preserved." David examined my state exemplar first. He placed the images side by side on his laptop and enlarged the ridge patterns. I watched him mark several points. After about 15 minutes, he leaned back. "The log print is not hers." "You're certain?" I asked. "Yes. Different ridge flow and core structure. I can prepare a formal exclusion." The relief I felt was smaller than I expected. I'd known it wasn't mine. Still, knowledge feels different once another person can prove it without trusting your word. The Commonwealth's Attorney's Office responded that evening. An investigator accepted Terry's referral for preliminary review and sent a preservation request to the Real Estate Board. Chelsea's fingerprint card was transferred directly to David under restricted handling. Terry and I weren't given a copy to keep. We were allowed to attend the comparison. The appointment happened the following Monday in a secure records room. David opened the digital images on separate screens. On the left was the thumbprint from Peter's log. On the right was the left thumb impression from Chelsea's licensing card. He enlarged both. The same curved ridge appeared near the center. A fork split in the same place. Two short ridges ended beside each other near the lower edge. David didn't make a quick announcement. He compared the images point by point. Then he repeated the process using different contrast settings. Terry sat beside me without speaking. After nearly 40 minutes, David removed his glasses. In my opinion, these impressions were made by the same person. "Chelsea," I said. "The licensing card identifies the source as Chelsea Woods." Terry asked, "Can you state that to a reasonable degree of professional certainty?" "Yes." "Will you put it in a signed report?" "Yes." I looked at the two prints on the screen. Chelsea hadn't only delivered the deed. She had placed her own thumb into Peter's log while my name appeared as the signer. She had left a physical mark beside the transaction she later claimed I couldn't remember. Peter's statement placed her alone in his office. My conference records placed me in Richmond. My state exemplar ruled me out. Her licensing card identified her. The copies of my signature at Cork Street explained how she could have practiced the name. The loan explained why she needed the deed. Her own thumbprint proved who carried the forgery through the notarization. Terry closed her legal pad. "This is the lever," she said. "The bank can argue about paperwork. Your father can argue about family intentions. Chelsea can claim you agreed verbally." She pointed to the screen. "She cannot explain why her thumbprint is in the notary's signer record under your name." David prepared the report that afternoon. Terry placed it beside the forged deed, the loan documents, and Peter's signed statement. She also prepared a notice for Shenandoah Community Bank's Fraud Counsel. The bank agreed to review the loan but had not yet frozen it. Its attorney wanted the certified comparison report and confirmation that the quiet title case had been filed. "We'll provide both," Terry said, "but not until we control the timing." I finally replied to Chelsea's cookout invitation. "I'll be there. Bring the confirmatory deed." Her answer came less than a minute later. "I knew you'd do the right thing." I put my phone down without correcting her. The next 3 days were mostly preparation. Terry arranged for the bank's fraud counsel to be available by phone during the cookout. She sent the certified comparison report but asked the bank not to contact Chelsea until after we spoke from the house. The quiet title complaint had been filed. Chelsea hadn't been served yet. The economic crimes referral remained open. David's original report stayed in Terry's file. I carried a certified copy. On Friday afternoon, Terry made me sit across from her and practice what I planned to say. "You're going to be interrupted," she said. "I know. Your father will try to move the conversation somewhere private." "I won't go. Bradley may say the loan has nothing to do with the deed. It only exists because of the deed. Chelsea will accuse you of embarrassing her. She invited everyone. Terry nodded. Don't explain the whole family history. Nobody needs 30 years of context to understand a forged signature. I looked at my notes. I wasn't planning to. You may want to once your father starts talking. She was right. In my head, I had already answered every version of Dad's disappointment. I'd explained every Wednesday with Grandma, every forgotten holiday, every time Chelsea's need became my obligation. None of that belonged in the proof. The documents were enough. What if he says he didn't know? I asked. Then he tells the truth. He didn't know about the forgery. No. But he knew you denied agreeing. He pressured you anyway. I folded the notes and put them away. Terry closed her folder. You don't have to make him understand everything on the porch. You only have to refuse the lie. That evening, Chelsea sent the schedule for the cookout. Guests would arrive at noon. Food at 1. The renovation presentation would begin at 2. She called the signing a family announcement. I replied, I'll unlock the house at 11. She sent back a heart. At 10:45 Saturday morning, I parked behind Terry's car near Cork Street. She wore dark slacks and a plain blue blouse. Nothing about her looked festive. You can still stop the event, she said. No, this is your property. You can tell everyone to leave. She wants witnesses, so do you. I unlocked the front door. Chelsea arrived 2 minutes later with Bradley and Dad. Her SUV was packed with folding signs, flower arrangements, and framed renovation pictures. Bradley's truck carried coolers and a rented canopy. Dad hugged me before I could step away. I'm proud of you, he said. I looked past him at Chelsea. She was unloading a wooden sign painted with the words, Wood's House Revival. You should wait before saying that. Dad smiled like I was making a joke. Chelsea came up the path carrying a ring binder. Can we please have one peaceful day? That depends. Sarah, I said I'd be here. She studied my face. Then she looked at Terry. I don't think we've met. This is Terry Huang. Terry offered her hand. Chelsea shook it. How do you know Sarah? She asked me to attend. Chelsea looked back at me. As what? A guest. Terry's expression didn't change. Chelsea released her hand. Well, the more the merrier. She didn't believe that, but she had too much arranged to challenge it. For the next hour, people carried food through Grandma's kitchen. Chelsea directed everything. She placed drinks on the back porch and moved the dining table against the wall. A caterer set trays of barbecue, beans, and coleslaw along the kitchen counter. The confirmatory deed remained inside Chelsea's binder. I watched her check it twice. Dad hung blue and white paper lanterns from the porch. He had always complained when Grandma asked him to replace a light bulb, but that morning he climbed a ladder without being asked. Aunt Gail arrived carrying a bowl covered in foil. She saw Terry beside me and lowered her voice. Is that the attorney? Yes. So this isn't a cookout. It is for now. Gail looked toward Chelsea. Does Alan know? No. She pressed her lips together. What do you need me to do? Stay. I can do that. By noon, the yard was full. Several neighbors came because they remembered Grandma. 2 agents from Chelsea's brokerage stood near the renovation boards drinking iced tea. Cousins and family friends filled the porch. Chelsea had invited enough people to make leaving feel rude. That was the point. She'd arranged photographs of the proposed renovation on easels. One showed the green siding painted gray. Another replaced Grandma's kitchen cabinets with white ones and removed the pantry wall. A large board displayed projected resale value. I read it from across the porch. Chelsea had included the house's purchase cost as 0. Grandma's gift appeared on her plan as free inventory. Bradley moved through the crowd talking about permits and supply costs. He sounded more relaxed than he had at either dinner. The dealership lawsuit wasn't mentioned. At 1, Dad tapped a spoon against his glass. Everybody, grab a plate before Bradley eats all the brisket. People laughed. I stood beside Terry near the porch rail. Dad thanked everyone for coming. He talked about Grandma's years in the house and said she would have loved seeing the family together. Aunt Gail looked down at her plate. Then Dad called Chelsea forward. She stood beside him wearing a white summer dress and the expression she used in listing photographs. "This house means so much to us," she said. "It's where our family had holidays, birthdays, and Sunday dinners." She paused while someone took a photograph. After Grandma passed, there was a lot of uncertainty about what would happen here. Sarah and I needed time to work through some things privately. That wasn't true. I let her continue. "I'm happy to say we've reached an understanding." People turned toward me. I held my glass with both hands. Chelsea smiled. "Sarah knows renovating older homes is what I love. She also knows Bradley and I can give this place the attention it deserves." A neighbor near the steps said, "Diane would be happy it's staying in the family." Chelsea placed one hand against her chest. "That's exactly what we want." Dad motioned for me to come forward. I stayed where I was. "Sarah," he said. "In a minute." A few people laughed uncertainly. Chelsea's smile tightened. She moved on to the renovation plans. She described opening the kitchen wall, refinishing the floors, and converting Grandma's back bedroom into an office. She spoke as if the work had already been approved. Bradley added that financing was in place. That was another lie. The financing was under review, and its collateral was disputed. He pointed toward the projected value on the display board. "We're not cutting corners. This is a serious investment." I asked, "How much have you already invested?" Chelsea looked at me. "We'll discuss the numbers privately. You're discussing the project publicly." Dad stepped between us slightly. "Today isn't about accounting." Bradley said, "We've committed the entire credit line to this project and our related business needs." Terry glanced at me. He'd said it in front of witnesses. Chelsea touched Bradley's arm. "The important thing is that everything is moving forward." She opened the ring binder. The confirmatory deed was clipped inside. Colored tabs marked the signature and notary sections. She had brought a notary from her brokerage. The woman stood near the porch table holding a stamp case. Terry quietly asked her, "Were you told what you're notarizing?" The woman looked confused. "A family property transfer. Were you given the prior deed?" "No." Chelsea heard them. "There's no need to complicate this," she said. Terry smiled politely. "I agree." At 2:15, Chelsea placed the deed on Grandma's old porch table. She set a black pen beside it. Dad came to stand on my right. His face carried the relieved certainty of someone who thought the difficult daughter had finally stopped resisting. "Come on," he said quietly. "Let's put this behind us." I walked to the table. Phones came out. Chelsea's brokerage friend began recording. The deed lay open to my signature page. Chelsea said, "Once Sarah signs, the title issue will be completely resolved." I looked at her. "What title issue?" Her eyes warned me not to do this. "The earlier deed just needs confirmation, because it transferred the house to you." "Yes, and you say I signed that deed. You did." "Where?" Chelsea glanced at the people around us. "We've discussed this. I want to hear it once more." Dad whispered, "Sarah." I didn't look at him. Chelsea lifted her chin. "You signed it before your conference in Richmond." "Where did I sign?" "At my house." That was different from what she'd said at dinner. Dad noticed. "You said she signed here," he said. Chelsea didn't turn toward him. I said we discussed it here. "She signed at my house." "Who was present?" I asked. Bradley was there. Bradley's head came up. Chelsea looked at him. He hesitated, then said, "I was in the other room. Did you see me?" "I knew you were there." "You knew? Or you saw me?" His mouth tightened. "I saw your car. I hadn't driven to Chelsea's house that week." I asked, "What happened after I signed?" Chelsea answered, "I took the deed to Peter Higgins. Was I with you?" "No. You'd already left for Richmond, so Peter never met me. You didn't need to meet him. Your signature was already on the document." The brokerage notary near the table shifted her weight. Chelsea continued before anyone could question that. You agreed to the transfer. You signed the deed. Peter completed the paperwork. The county recorded it. That's what happened. Every part of her story was now public. Dad looked less certain, but he still touched the edge of the document. Sign the house to your sister, he said. Then we can stop hurting each other. Chelsea pushed the pen toward me. Please, Sarah, in front of everyone, do what you promised. I let the silence last. Then I reached beneath the porch table and lifted Terry's document case onto the wood. Terry opened the case and removed 3 documents. She placed the forged quitclaim deed on the left. The home equity paperwork went in the center. Peter's signing log went on the right. Chelsea stared at the pages. What is this? She asked. The paperwork you said I didn't understand. Dad leaned toward the table. Terry pointed to the quitclaim deed. This transferred the house from Sarah to Chelsea in February. Sarah denies signing it. Chelsea crossed her arms. We just explained that she did. Terry moved to the loan document. This deed allowed Chelsea and Bradley to borrow $175,000 against the house in March. Several conversations around the porch stopped. Bradley stepped forward. You can't share our financial information. It's recorded against Sarah's property, Terry said. It's not her property. Terry touched the final page. This is Peter Higgins's signing log from the February appointment. Chelsea's face went still. I turned the copy so everyone near the table could see it. The log lists me as the signer, I said. But Peter gave a signed statement confirming I was never in his office. Chelsea shook her head. He's lying to protect himself. He admitted you brought the deed already signed. That doesn't prove anything. No. This does. I pointed to the dark impression in the rectangular box. Peter's signing service required a left thumbprint for the closing file. Bradley moved closer. Chelsea didn't. My notary commission fingerprint is on file with the state, I said. It doesn't match this print. Dad looked from the page to my hand. What are you saying? I took David's report from the case. The state also has Chelsea's fingerprint card from her real estate license. Chelsea's lips parted. I read the one line that mattered. The thumbprint on file belongs to Chelsea Woods. Nobody spoke. A phone continued recording from the other side of the porch table. Chelsea looked at the people around her, then at Terry. You can't prove when that print was taken. The log identifies the date, time, property, document, and supposed signer, Terry said. Peter confirms you were the only person present. He could have taken it for something else. It's beside Sarah's name. He made the mistake. He made a serious mistake, Terry said. He didn't forge Sarah's signature. Chelsea pointed at me. She agreed to give me the house. I didn't. You said you didn't want it. I said I wasn't sure I wanted to live here. That's the same thing. No, Chelsea. It isn't. Dad picked up the quitclaim deed. His hands shook slightly. You told me she signed this. She did. She just proved she didn't. Chelsea turned on him. You wanted me to have the house, too. I wanted her to sign it over. I didn't know you'd already filed this. You didn't want to know, I said. Dad looked at me. I kept my voice even. I asked what the confirmatory deed was fixing. You told me to stop resisting. I asked whether you'd seen an earlier deed. You still took her side. His mouth opened, then closed. Chelsea grabbed the confirmatory deed from the table. This fixes everything. She can sign now. Terry placed one hand over the signature page. No, signing it would ratify the forged transfer. That is why you needed her signature today. I needed it because she changed her mind. You already spent the loan, I said. Bradley looked toward the yard as if searching for an exit nobody would notice. I asked him, did you know she forged my name? No. Chelsea stared at him. Bradley continued. She told me the deed was handled. I didn't ask how. You spent the money. It went into the businesses. The 2 agents from Chelsea's brokerage moved away from the renovation board. Aunt Gail stood near the steps with her arms folded. Chelsea looked at Dad. Say something. He lowered the forged deed. What do you want me to say? Tell her this should stay in the family. "It is in the family," Aunt Gail said. "It belongs to Sarah." Terry took out her phone and placed it on speaker. The bank's fraud counsel answered. Terry gave my name, the loan reference, and the verification code arranged earlier. The attorney confirmed the certified fingerprint report had been reviewed. Shenandoah Community Bank was freezing the home equity line from further activity and issuing a formal demand for repayment. Bradley gripped the back of a porch chair. "You can't recall it today. The bank can protect itself when its collateral was obtained through a disputed deed," Terry said. The attorney confirmed the loan was being recalled. Chelsea's voice rose. "You planned this?" "Yes," I said, "after I found the deed." She looked around the porch. "These people don't need to hear this. You invited them to watch me sign. That was supposed to be a family moment. It still is." I didn't say anything else. Terry ended the bank call. Then she told Chelsea that a forgery referral was already open with the Commonwealth's Attorney's Economic Crimes Unit. There was no arrest on the porch. No one touched Chelsea. The consequences arrived through the documents she'd created herself. Guests began leaving in small groups. The neighbors hugged Aunt Gail and avoided looking at the renovation boards. Chelsea's colleagues took their drinks and walked to their cars without saying goodbye. The brokerage notary packed her unused stamp. Dad remained beside the table. Chelsea told Bradley they needed to call the bank. He said they needed to call their own lawyer first. They argued all the way to the SUV. When Chelsea drove off, the wooden Woods House Revival sign was still leaning against Grandma's porch. Dad looked at it for a long time. Then he carried it to the curb. The quiet title case took several months. Peter cooperated. His statement, logbook, and signing service records supported the court's finding that I never executed the quitclaim deed. The February deed was declared void. The land records were corrected, and title returned to the clean chain from Grandma's estate. The bank's lien against Cork Street was removed. The debt did not disappear. It remained with Chelsea and Bradley under their loan agreements. Their attorney argued with the bank about repayment terms, but they couldn't place the loss back on my house. Bradley's 21-day deadline expired while the bank dispute was unfolding. The dealership's floor plan lender took control of financed inventory and continued its lawsuit. Woods Auto Sales closed before winter. Chelsea's real estate brokerage ended its association with her. The real estate board opened a licensing review after receiving the fingerprint report and court findings. The Commonwealth's attorney continued the forgery investigation. Chelsea wasn't arrested in front of us, and I didn't need her to be. She had to answer questions with dates, signatures, and records instead of family explanations. Peter surrendered his notary commission while the state reviewed his conduct. He apologized to me through Terry. I accepted the statement, not the excuse. Dad didn't call for almost a month. Then he left a voicemail asking whether he could come to the house. I met him on the porch. I didn't give him a key. He sat in Grandma's rocking chair and looked at the newly corrected deed in my hand. I believed her because believing her was easier, he said. I waited. He rubbed his palms against his knees. I kept telling myself you were difficult because you asked questions. Chelsea told me what I wanted to hear. You pressured me to approve a theft. I know. You used Grandma against me. His eyes dropped. I know. That was the first apology he gave without adding something about Chelsea's stress. I didn't forgive him that afternoon. We started with shorter visits, public places, no financial conversations, no messages carried between Chelsea and me. When he defended her, I ended the conversation. When he listened, I stayed. That was the relationship we had left. It wasn't repaired. It was honest enough to test slowly. I kept the house. The following spring, I finally repaired the cracked porch spindle. Then I spent a Saturday repainting the rail Grandma had meant to fix. I chose white, the same color she'd always used. Near sunset, I sat on the front step with paint on my wrist and Diane's handwritten card beside me. I'd found it in a box of her keepsakes after the court case began. It repeated what the will had already said in a more private way. She wanted me to have the house because I had never made her feel like a chore. The card never became evidence. It didn't need to. The deed was enough for the court. The logbook was enough for the truth. For years, I thought being believed depended on explaining myself well enough. It didn't. Sometimes it depended on keeping the records and refusing to sign. If you believe family doesn't get to rewrite your name, subscribe, and tell me which city you're watching from.